We're back in Small Grove in sunny Doncaster, and if you remember when we came here last time, I decided that I was going to buy and rent out this property. So what I want to do is we'll show some before and after, but I want to see how the lads have got on and share the updated figures on how we got on with this property. So let's jump in. So the first thing you'll notice is we have doors. The open plan arrangement is no more. Something with these doors is we started putting these types in buy-to-lets. They cost like an extra £6 per door, which mounts up, but I just think it's the standard of it is so much higher and makes it feel a lot more welcoming. So as we're going around, you can see it's a decent standard for buy-to-let property. There's still some final snagging that needs to go on, but I really like keeping these buy-to-lets neutral with a little bit of character in there. So it's not just whitewash everywhere and beige carpets and stuff like that. We've got a bit of grey, bit of tone and things like that. And it's got this fresh approach to everything, but you want a tenant to be able to come in and put their stamp on the place, making your house into their home. But come through here to the kitchen. And if you remember, the problem with this kitchen is you've got that entrance room in there, and if this were a higher value property, I'd probably knock through and make it a bit more open, but there just wasn't the money in here. So we had this awkward space in here. It was kind of all tight, but you know, as you can see, we put in a small little kitchen. It's quite nice, and I think these kitchens from Howdens, you can get a really good range in there, and they've got the key things. Just make sure you're trying to get the best rates possible, because at Howdens you do get 2 different rates, but I think it looks solid. And you know, these kitchens in terms of material and installation is about a couple of grand all in, and I think it's done pretty well overall, to be honest. So it's quite a cozy bath in this one, to be honest. So if you remember this room, the issue with it is quite tight and long, but the team have done well. It's a small bath, to be fair. I mean, I'm a short ass, and this is cozy, but I think they've done quite well with the space. I don't know if you remember I think there were sequins on the wall and stuff like that, and this massive weird open shower with no bath in there. But I think they've done a really good job. You know, they've kept it simple. It's not top end stuff, but it's durable and it looks pretty good as you're going through. And then the rest of the rooms, which we'll sort of go through now, again, the light colours, and it's worth coming in to see this. The fact that it's a grey carpet and then light rooms as it's coming up, considering there's small windows on these properties around here due to the construction nature, non-standard construction, the wimpy no fines if you remember, it makes the room feel a lot bigger than it actually is, which is quite good in these small terrace houses to maximise the impact of the value that the tenant or end user is getting. So there is no way I'm going back up in that loft, but if you remember, there was a nice little business arrangement with this property investment, and that was a nice little drug den up top. So we've managed to clear that. I'll tell you how much profit we made on the proceeds of that. No, I did not sell drugs. Didn't sell drugs, but no, so we got rid of that, cleared that out, and that was a bit of an interesting one for this property and very well hidden business arrangement. So spot the difference. What's gone? The house, right? If you remember this ugly outbuilding, the bottle of Grey Goose is gone, I'm afraid, but realistically we were hoping to repair it because it did give that additional space, but the issue was the windows were blown, and it would have cost like £500 going around it, sorting that out, and all of the other issues. So it's just much cheaper to rip it down, repair it, and you can see the scarring around, and then we're going to get that painted once it's fully dried. But all of these little mistakes end up mounting up, and in fact, we went £7,000 over budget. Let's break down how that happened. So the original budget was £20,000 if you remember, and it actually came in at £27,000. So you might be thinking, still in its 20s, but £7 grand overspend is a 35% increase, which is a massive screw up in price and up, in my opinion. So where did we go wrong? Well, it's really split in two. So first of all, £3.5 grand. Where did that go? First of all, if you remember, there were some mains issues with this, where this is the only property on the street that didn't have gas central heating. It was the only person on the street that opted out of it. And so we had to factor in those costs, and it cost about £1,000 in gardening in terms of trenches and things like that being dug for those mains going in. We also, it's very rare that you have to plaster the ceiling of a property, but we had to do that with this property, and the reason why is just because of how bumpy it was. And because of the non-standard construction, we had to put boards in as well. So that cost an additional £900. we had just outside, if you remember, the outbuilding area that honestly, I'm a little weakling. I could have pushed that down, right? It was on its way out. And then when you are dumping and doing your skips, you have to be aware of fly tippers. It pisses me off to no end, but once you start accumulating rubbish, it attracts more rubbish, and we just had people fly tipping, adding to our expenses. One person threw over a deep freeze, you know, those deep freezers, and we thought, right, we'll just get rid of that, and then it was full of crabs, which is really annoying because you can't just chuck that in a skip, and it all ends up mounting up. So if that were you, you're a dick, and thanks very much. But that ended up adding to about £3,500. The other thing to be aware of is, at the point of filming, this is August 2021 now, and there's been a lot of stuff happening over the last year or so, including Brexit. Now, I'm not saying I'm for or against Brexit, but the impact of the demand going up, supply dropping, and then the increase in import charges, mainly around crate costs, by the way, which most people don't think about, but how do you think the timber and everything comes into our country? The crates, about 300% up, massively increased the price of labour and the materials coming in. So that accounts for about £3,500 coming in. So that's 7,000 in total. So when you go through it, it's kind of justifiable, but still pisses me off. So 7 grand overspend, which I'm really not happy about overall, but did it positively impact the figures? So if you go back to the original video, you'll know that we end up wanting to put in about 72,500 into this. That would have represented about 50 grand for the purchase price, stamp duty, the refurbishment, fees, etc. And we're aiming to rent this property out for £525. And ideally we'd refinance it for about 90, and I was really hoping on a good day it'd achieve 95, but we worked the figures on £90,000. So what that meant with a 75% refinance is we're leaving in about sort of 12, 13 grand of cash, and then added equity of around 17,000 and a return on capital employed of 52%, which is absolutely insane in the grand scheme of things. So 72.5 in, refinance at 90 grand, and then coming back. Now the downside is we did not go £72,500 in, we were actually £81,000 all in once these little bits of snagging and stuff like that is done. But there's some really great news that comes along with that. So because the quality is so high in here for a buy-to-let standard, we've actually achieved a much better end valuation of £100,000. You think, well, okay, that's pretty cool, but you're not selling it, so why does it make a difference? Well, for a buy-to-let property, the higher the end valuation that we're able to refinance out, the more money we're pulling out of the deal. So if there's a £100,000 property, you get a 75% loan to value. That means 75,000 is going back in my pocket. So if I've got 81 left in the property, so 81 minus the 75, £6,000 left in the property. What's really cool though is on top of that £6,000, there's £19,000 added equity. Well, what about the return on capital? Because as I always say, that is the most important part. Well, even better news, because of the demand in the area and all of the logistics and infrastructures going in, on top of the quality of the end finish of the property, we've actually rented the property for £625, which might not seem like a big difference, but that extra £100 means two things for me. Number one, that's £100 pure profit in my pocket on a monthly basis. So instead of cash flowing just north of 200, we're cash flowing north of £300. And more importantly, it's adjusting to that money left in. So we are producing a 52.42% return on capital, which is a great investment by anyone's eyes. So all in all, I'm pretty happy with this property, and I think it really brings out some top tips in this. That number one, make sure you've got some strong contingencies, but also if you're new to property, please, please, please have a buffer of money. And the reason I'm saying that is in my situation where I've got the money rolling in now, I don't really need to worry about that 7 grand overspend. But so many people, they do their numbers to the T, add 10% contingency, and they just hope for the best. but in fact you should prepare for the worst and make sure you've got 5-10 grand sat there in an account, whether it's yours or an investor's money, just in case you need to utilize it. Yes, you're going to pay some opportunity cost on that, but I'd much rather you be in that situation than cut yourself short. So what do you think? Do you think it's a good investment? Do you think I made the right move? What do you think of the area, and what do you think of the finish of the property? I'm quite excited about this one, and I'm really excited about seeing the next property review, but let me know what you thought in the comments. What would you do?